League One roundup where fair amount happened over the weekend. Status quo mostly maintained at the top. That came in the form of Birmingham City winning 6-2 against Barnsley. I mentioned last Monday that the 4 goals that they'd scored the previous Saturday was only the second time they'd scored 4 in a game this season. This was 6 of the best, aided by an early red card for Barnsley. Dijavigny, look, George, I don't really like digging people out, but he has had a shocker recently. Now, Barnsley play quite a high line, and I like to always try and defend centre-backs by saying that playing in a really high line, it just exposes you. It makes you defend space against generally quite quick, nippy strikers and or physically imposing strikers. It's not very fun. Long bouncing balls, communication with the goalkeeper, all that sort of stuff. But Dijavigny has failed on all fronts in the last few games. I think this is the 3rd straight game where I've noticed an error in dealing with the ball over the top. And in this instance, I saw him get sent off. The goals flowed after that in both directions, frankly, to the tune of 6-2. It was a penalty that put Birmingham City ahead. Stansfield with his 18th goal of the season, exactly half of them from the penalty spot. Joint top now with Richard Kone in the Golden Boot race in League One. George, the best goal by miles was Lucas the Duke Jutkiewicz scoring the 6th. We get bogged down in week-to-week stuff. We get bogged down in how good players are or aren't at any given time. And sometimes we like to remind ourselves that one of the best things that can happen in football at any level is a player and a club just fusing themselves together for like the better part of a decade, and kind of in sickness and in health, right? Which for both Lucas Jutkiewicz and for Birmingham City has meant some pretty tough times and some decent times as well. Now they're in the best shape they've been in for a long time, well on course for 100 points, and the Duke gets a big moment at St Andrews in front of a packed house, and it was just beautiful.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it feels like Birmingham as a football club has changed beyond recognition over the last 18 months or so, for all the positive reasons that fans are happy about. You know, obviously the new ownership group investing a lot of money, their time of being firstly a pretty dysfunctional football club, but then a football club that were on the precipice, feel like a long time ago. But the Duke was there throughout that time, and even though the club may be changing beyond recognition, and even though the club will leave him behind relatively soon, it's great to see someone who was there throughout that, someone who lived it with the fan base, having his moment with them to celebrate before he does move off away from the club. As you say, just been an unbelievable servant to them. I was in prepping for today, and actually when I saw the goal, I went onto his Wikipedia page, great website, and I couldn't believe the Duke's career between 2006 and 2010. I did not know he came through at Swindon. I did not remember that breakthrough season of 5 goals and 38, and I did not know that he got moved to Everton off the back of it. That blew my mind. But
where were you those years, man? That was peak. That was peak Football Manager, knowing every player in the whole world. I don't know what you were doing.
I think, well, specifically 2006,
Discos,
2010, well, that was Oxford's spelling non-league. So I wasn't paying attention. It was a great moment. And, Birmingham City now paying 10, 15, 20 million for a striker. It's good to see the guy who was there when they weren't able to do that, enjoying himself with their fans.
Couldn't agree more. Also, could not agree more about your throwaway line about Wikipedia. I would go as far as to say one of the great successes of modern humanity, Wikipedia.
Yeah. Well, in that case, Ali, have you ever clicked on that button that says donate now?
So Wrexham beat Burton 3-0 in a victory that I'm calling one big step towards the championship. 1 foot in the championship, maybe. They, like Birmingham, benefited from a red card and a penalty, which, helps any team. I'm afraid, Charlie Webster, you just need to be a little bit smarter. I don't believe that Charlie Webster flew into that tackle with the intention of catching his opponent in a way that was dangerous, but he did, and it is a red card by the letter of the law in the modern game, etc., etc. It gave them a mountain to climb, and they just stayed at the bottom of the mountain. Penalty scored. Sam Smith with another great goal, just looking like a massive handful still. What a fantastic addition that was for Wrexham in January. And Jack Marriott getting a goal as well at the end to win 3-0 to Wrexham. Kind of no further questions, Your Honour, that they're just winning at the moment at the point in the season where winning comes with great rewards. And Wycombe are not doing the same. They lost to Reading. Reading, who this time last week we did a Football Corner segment on. They were 6th in the table. They promptly lost against Blackpool in midweek, dropped out of the top 6, but did a great job here to beat Wycombe and keep the pressure on. Still 7th. Harvey Nibbs winning it from the spot. As for what we talked about off the pitch with Reading last week, as I had thought would be the case, that the deadline for the EFL for Dai Yong to divest his shares was extended, so they do continue to exist as an EFL club. Clearly the pressure is still on that front, but it's good to see that deadline extended. And you know what's mad about Wycombe's season, George? The only teams they've lost to in League One are Birmingham and Wrexham, twice each. Now, I don't think you deserve to win automatic promotion if you lose both games to the other two teams kind of gunning for it, but that's by the by. They've lost away to Charlton by a single goal, away to Reading by a single goal from the spot, and they lost at home to Huddersfield 1-0. They haven't lost to any other team in the division in League One. The bad news is they've still got 4 of the top 8 to play. Huddersfield away, Bolton away, Stockport and Charlton at home. And the way that they're playing at the moment, you wouldn't be surprised to see them finish 5th, to be quite honest with you, although they do have a game in hand over Stockport and Charlton, who are 1 and 2 points behind them. They also led to me going viral in midweek with one of the most bonkers things I've seen an EFL club do for a long time, in which, in their 0-0 draw against Shrewsbury in midweek, a game where they absolutely battered Shrews, I think they had like 31 shots, they sent Will Norris up to attack a corner, their goalkeeper, in injury time in that game. Now, I don't think a team in the EFL has ever sent their keeper up during a 0-0 draw that isn't like the last or second last game of the season, that isn't a game where if you draw rather than win, you like fail to achieve something that you're going for. I absolutely loved it. I mean, it obviously there wasn't, it didn't go wrong in that Shrews didn't go up the other end and score. The game did play on for another 20 seconds after it was headed away, so it wasn't like it was headed away and then the whistle blew. Absolutely nuts. And yeah, Wycombe at the moment, eh?
I'd love to know if Shrewsbury left anyone up. Like, I wonder if it was a moment where they saw that they had every single man in the box and thought, you know what, like, well, let's do it.
They had a chance to do the funniest thing that's ever happened in an EFL regular season, and they didn't do it.
Yeah,
Wrexham, one foot in the champ.
It looks that way, especially with Charlton dropping points, because as I mentioned, with Charlton's trip to Wrexham, it felt like they had to kind of keep pace, and that puts pay to that a little bit. So, I mean, not quite 1 foot in the champ. Wycombe still had that game in hand, which if they win, they'll only be 3 points behind, with a better goal difference too. So, I mean, that would take it all the way to final day if we go in that way with Wycombe, a Wycombe win and a Wrexham defeat, meaning that the roles would be reversed. But and I'm still basically no is my answer. I'm still thinking that Wrexham aren't playing particularly well. Like, this was a real banana skin game that was helped like massively for them by the early red cards. Like, I don't think for a second this would have been a comfortable home win for Wrexham. They may have won it, but I don't think it would have been a comfortable 3-0 home win had Burton had 11 men. And that was kind of shown by the fact it took Wrexham quite a long time to break Burton down. Burton actually had a decent opportunity that Okonkwo saved or smothered well in the first half when they had 10 men. So, yeah, they are clearly the likeliest team to follow Birmingham into the Championship. But I do kind of think they're going to have to maybe improve a bit. Like, the fixtures aren't that difficult, but certainly a home game against Bristol Rovers is okay. But Wigan proving a bit of a tough nut to crack under Ryan Lowe. Blackpool, one of the form teams in the league. Charlton, as we've already said, could be very tasty. And then a trip to Lincoln. Lincoln won't have anything to play for, but that's not an easy place to go. And Lincoln seems to be quite enjoying at the moment being a team with little to play for, upsetting the Charlton promotion push in a similar state. So, no, I mean, it looks good, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if it drags on till towards the end of the season, and even if they end up coming unstuck.
I think they're just going to be promoted in like the next couple of weeks. I mean, there's only 4 weeks left, so that's not saying a huge amount. But I just think, like, I'm pretty down on Wycombe at the moment. I don't see them getting back to a level of points accrual in the next 6 games that has them challenging Wrexham. And Stockport, who I like a lot, just look at it this way: if they win all 5 of their games, they will get to 89 points. And that's only 8 points off for Wrexham with 5 games to go. And I'm not saying they would definitely get 8 points in 5 games, but it doesn't feel like a huge stretch given the amount of clean sheets that they keep more than anything else. Down towards the playoff picture, Bolton are 6th, and they won a big one in midweek against Wigan. They won again against Bristol Rovers, 1-0. Neither of them classic performances, but good to see this Bolton side under Schumacher defending a bit more seriously, keeping clean sheets, and getting a goal through Aaron Collins against his old club Rovers. They had Nathan Baxter to thank for a fantastic save at 1-0 to secure the victory. It's 5 defeats in a row for Bristol Rovers. Thankfully for them, Crawley and Burton both lost. We've already discussed Burton. We'll get on to Crawley in a sec. And also thankfully for them, given that they're the worst away team in the division, 3 of their next 4 are at home, but certainly not out of the woods yet. We'll get down to the relegation picture shortly. Charlton drew 2-2 with Lincoln, as you mentioned. They didn't make it 9 home wins in a row. James Collins with a near post flick from a corner to put Lincoln ahead, and then Collins again making it 2-0. Quite funny build up to that second Lincoln goal where one of their players played a back pass to the keeper, massively overhit it, and Wickens, the keeper, had to basically control it on his throat to stop it from flying into the net for a comedy own goal, and then took a touch and just built up, and they scored like 10 seconds later. Charlton came roaring back in the second half. Set-piece goal, Gillespie. Set-piece goal, Doherty. And an amazing Wickens save at the end from Godden to keep it level. Stockport beat Exeter 2-0. A Kyle Wootton double, a fairly routine victory. Wootton's goals owing a lot to first Jaden Fevrier with a great piece of individual play to set that goal up, and then Isaac Alafe with the same for his second goal. Stockport purring at the moment, 3 wins in a row. Fevrier coming, sort of starting to establish himself, having joined in the summer and missing the start of the season through injury, just adds another dimension to their attack. The sort of player that they don't have off the right wing, tricky, skillful, can put crosses in, can go for goal himself, as we've seen. So, another weapon in their arsenal. And it means we've got Birmingham top on 92, Wrexham second 81, Wycombe 75, Stockport 74, Charlton 73 now. Just 2 points separating those 3 teams, Wycombe having played a game less. Huddersfield 2, Mansfield 1. George John Worthington getting another home win. Ruskin, the star man for them, with a beautiful goal and a really nice assist as well. Another goal from Dom Dwyer of Mansfield, as we mentioned last week on the Monday pod. Orient 0, Wigan 0 was very much a match that happened, and it leaves Orient 6 points off the playoffs and Wigan 6 points above the relegation zone, but with games in hand. And just lastly, in the playoff race, Blackpool looked like they were making a dart at it, but they went down to Rotherham 2-1. A Rotherham side playing with quite a lot more zip and very visible enjoyment after the departure of Steve Evans. Both Rotherham goals from set pieces. Blackpool's was from the spot. Jake Peasley got sent off, and it leaves us looking like this for the battle for 6th spot, George. Bolton 66, Reading 65, Huddersfield 64, and then Orient and Blackpool on 60.
Yeah, it's obviously still the one spot that they're all vying for. Reading with that massive win against Wycombe keeps them very much in it, but you have to think that Bolton are probably the favourites to do so now, not just because they're the current occupants, but because they're playing pretty well in terms of the squads at hand. Certainly looking at Bolton, Huddersfield has been the best too, but I still wouldn't be trusting Huddersfield massively. Will Evans missed a massive opportunity in that game against Mansfield, basically an open goal from a rebound out of the post that would have would have changed the game somewhat. And looking down to Orient now with 6 points behind Bolton with 6 games to play, it just feels like it's probably too much. And the same can be said for Blackpool. So, they could force their way in, but you're looking at one of Bolton, Reading or Huddersfield in my mind, and Bolton's certainly the most likely as far as I can see.
Peterborough 0, Northampton Town 4. 4.
Can you say that in your Charles Alexander-Gordon voice?
Peterborough United 0, Northampton Town 4.
Yeah, I think you need to sound a bit more surprised, but it was good.
I was about to say I'm not sure he'd have actually put that much sauce on it. And there you go. Northampton Town have done the double over Posh, and that feels good for them. Sam Hoskins did some vintage Hoskins to put them ahead. He also scored from the spot. One of my favourite players this season, Dara Costello, scored a tap-in. I was going to say a nice goal. It was a tap-in. Let's call it what it was. 4-0.
Nice
Tom Eaves with a header. Eaves shoots and leaves. 4-0 Northampton. Redemption for the 5-1 reverse scoreline last season. And just not just that, a massive win for their chances of staying in the division, which I reckon most neutrals wouldn't have been that worried about a Northampton relegation. Partly because the bottom four, with a few brief exceptions, have been really poor. They're all under 1 point per game, and Cobblers have always managed to stay above that line. But I think Northampton Town fans were starting to get a little concerned over the last few weeks. They've absolutely smashed Peterborough. They're now 7 points above the relegation zone, with Wigan and Bristol Rovers in particular 4 points behind them, Rovers, and should be safe for next season. And Kevin Nolan can reshape this squad, and I'm intrigued to see what Northampton are going to look like next season under Nolan. Stevenage beat Crawley 3-1. This Crawley side that got those 2 wins under Scott Lindsay, and then lost in midweek to Peterborough in really damaging circumstances, 4-3. They lost 3-1 to Stevenage here. I just think, Stevenage scored with their only shot of the first half, a long-range free kick. Crawley probably the better side, certainly had more shots at goal. They then get themselves level through Ibrahim. Really smart take from the edge of the box, having controlled a high ball. And for Crawley, it's just you don't give yourself a chance of staying up if you can't use momentum like that. Reed scored for Stevenage. Kemp scored for Stevenage. A Stevenage side that really struggled for goal recently. Significant for their fans to see them score 3 at home. But from a kind of neutral's interest point of view, it's been a desperately disappointing week for Crawley, George, who we had quite a lot of hope for, and hope still remains. They're 6 points behind Bristol Rovers. There's 5 games to go, but just a bit of a disaster to have lost both games this week. And maybe if you touch on Burton as well, who are 3 points above them, so 3 behind Bristol Rovers with a game in hand.
Yeah, for Crawley, against the Peterborough result obviously was just absolutely horrendous to lose the game in the way they did and as late as they did, with the chances they had at 3-3 to be the team to score the 7th goal of the game. It's kind of similar with the Stevenage one, where they were unlucky to go behind. They conceded from a free kick from absolutely miles out, which was Stevenage's only shot in 73 minutes. Crawley quite clearly the better team and fully deserving of their goal when Bradley Ibrahim made it 1-1. But from there, you think they've got to be the dominant side from there, but goals change games, and as soon as that equaliser went in, rather than it being Crawley who looked to turn the screw, it was Stevenage who were on top and scored twice late to win the game 3-1, with Crawley barely threatening, and that for me is a real concern. Away against a team who you've had the better of, have very little to play for, who've offered nothing in open play, to roll over like that when then if they were ahead you'd kind of get it, but they weren't even ahead, they'd just drawn level. A
sobering reminder of broadly why these teams
football
are where they are.
Yeah, for sure,
because they're not the team that you want them to be.
And with Burton, you can draw a line through the result at Wrexham. I think it's relatively, it's pretty relevant. They've still got 4 home games left of their 6. Huddersfield, Birmingham, Cambridge and Wigan, though. 2 of those in particular in Birmingham and Huddersfield look pretty tough, albeit in Huddersfield's current guys, you wouldn't put it past them to get something from that game on Saturday. So I still think Burton will get enough points to overtake Bristol Rovers if Bristol Rovers have a really, really bad end to the season. That's a big if there. Please don't cut me saying the if part. So that's why, especially with Bristol Rovers' very poor away form, although as you mentioned, with them playing the majority of the games at home, they'll probably be okay. But it's not done yet.
If you can keep your head while all those around you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. Maybe something for Inigo Calderon to read this week. It's a big few weeks for Bristol Rovers. As you say, 3 points above Burton, but Burton have a game in hand, and effectively, it is effectively only a 2-point gap, because Burton goal difference is 7 goals better. So if they make up the difference anyway, clearly it'll be even better, or it'll be likely to be even better than that. So a lot of pressure on the gas at the moment. Lastly, we had the bottom 2 facing off, and Cambridge beat Shrewsbury 1-0. The goal really summed up these two teams and the season. Blackman in goal for Shrewsbury, just passing it straight to Ballard. Ballard's quite an interesting young attacker who I think will have a pretty good career if he can stay fit. He's a bit undersized compared to a lot of number 9s these days, but he's clearly got goals in his blood. Finished really nicely into the corner. Cambridge winning that one 1-0. They've got 6 more points than Shrews. They are 7 points from safety with 5 games to go. So maybe a couple more wins. Maybe we'll get excited in a couple of weeks about Cambridge. My main thought here was just comparing the two, as I expect them to both head down to League Two this season. And, right now, 6th of April, there's 4 months until the season starts. So it doesn't really matter that much. But I can't escape the fact that right now, Cambridge United and Shrewsbury are heading down with very different vibes, very different feeling, very different levels of organisation as I see it from the outside. Obviously, a lot can change, and Shrews in particular, they've just a period of exclusivity with the potential owners just ended, so they're back to square one on that front. The likelihood of them finding success under the current ownership, it's not completely out of the question, but it feels improbable at the moment. Seems like a partner, it just needs to end, a marriage that needs to end at some point in some way or another. Whereas Cambridge, their owners are also not ones with deep pockets, but I think they are, pretty solid owners. And I think they've gone early with Neil Harris, who, as long as he's committed to the club next season, with the energy that he's bringing, the standards that he's clearly trying to get in front of, and hopefully Mark Bonner, supporting well in recruitment, feel a lot more positive about Cambridge heading down to League Two than I do Shrews. And there you go, 1-0 winners.